See, like, that also speaks to something I feel about, like, authors and book reviewers.
Right.
Because, like, going back to the bookish community, there is the tension between authors and reviewers is absolutely atrocious.
Oh, the tension's always going to be there.
Oh, absolutely. But it's also like everyone gets so defensive about their own stance. Like, oh, well, reviews aren't for writers and writers need to stay out of readers' spaces and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's also, oh, but why we want authors to send us advanced reader copies, but they can't hold us accountable to review those author reader copies. They should just swallow that cost because not all your marketing dollars are going to have a return. You can't expect me to review your book. You gave it to me for free. The way I see some people talk about advanced reader copies, I'm sorry, this is my soapbox for a second. The way I see people talk about advanced reader copies, it goes back again to is they want that Candy Crush dopamine hit.
Yeah.
That, oh, I got a free book. I got a book before anyone else. I'm not saying I'm going to read it. I'm not saying I'm going to review it, but oh, look, I got the shiny thing. And I saw one lady who was like, oh, are there any middle grade authors who can send arcs for my middle school child on vacation? And I'm like,
Oh, it's funny because I just got a physical book for a guest on It's Not Therapy.
mm-hmm.
And it showed up and I was like, it was clearly a book package, but
Yeah.
it showed up and I was like, I didn't order anything. What is this? I opened it up, I was like, oh my God, a paper book. And we'd actually had a conversation about, they said, where can we send a paper book to? I said, it's Canada. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. Don't worry about it. I'll take the digital copy. They're like, no, no, no. We'll send it to I actually sat there staring at it, not believing it was real.
Here's the thing.
It's a book.
And here's the thing. Like, I think advanced reader copies are great. And I think it's cool, but just the way I see people want to take advantage of it. And like I said, they just want the shiny thing.
Oh yeah.
They don't understand and they don't respect that it needs to be a transaction. And they can say, oh, well, Amazon doesn't accept bot reviews. That's breaking the FTC guidelines. It's like, that's not the point. It's
And I mean, let's face it, there's other ways to farm reviews than buying them, as we recently found out accidentally. Um, that was something. I mean, the whole thing's sleazy, right?
yeah.
And when you're in this for a long time, dear God, when I think how long I've been in this game in some way, shape, or form. And that's the thing about me, right? I've been deeply involved in comics. I've written and published indie comics.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked in music programming, was part of recording a single. I've done some music video stuff. I've done a little bit of film. I don't like film. I've done a lot of television, radio, web. There are certain things that do transfer that are just the same. And no one sits around and goes, here's how we're going to really stick it to the fans on this. That stuff that people are seeing in the press is terrified people knowing they're going to get hammered, putting on false bravado. And
which, I mean, that comes back more to the press and the media corporations than anything, I think.
Oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Doing these promotional things. It is, God, I remember the one interview I did with Vice and I didn't want to do it, but it wasn't my call. It was for the comedy tour.
Mm-hmm.
And this fucker, he screwed up the recording. He lost the recording to write the article at. We took half an hour before the fucking show, which, wow, is that an ask? Because if it goes poorly, it can throw you off.
Mm-hmm.
And he lost it. We redid it while driving to the next gig, and the fucker shanked us. And then, so I'm like, all right, two can play at that game. And so I did a YouTube video on here's the behind the scenes story of this interview. Here's what went down. Here's what happened. The fucker complained to the PR person that, oh, well, if she wants to have a conversation, she can talk to me, not about me. Do you realize that's what you do for a living?
You're a journalist.
Son of a bitch. Like, you were super nice to my face, and then you wrote this hatchet job behind the scenes, and you put my jokes in the other person's mouth so you could go, oh, not relevant anymore, and male gaze, and they were my fucking jokes, you motherfucker. And
I mean, the fact it actually got you to say son of a bitch.
oh yeah, like it just see, there are words I try to avoid because they're gotchas. You know,
Yeah.
people take that one clip and then use that in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, and I get that you don't know what it's like until you've been there.
Yeah.
But having been on both sides of that divide and recognizing that the promo process, the modeling process, it's not about feeling glamorous. It's
No.
about feeling gross and sticky and hot and hungry and dehydrated and terrified, and then faking feeling pretty. You never feel pretty. You're in too much pain.
Yeah.
Right? It's something you have to fake. And the interview process, they're not feeling confident. People don't realize how the reporters just churn through and churn through and churn through. And the last one, you are stupid. You are so stupid at the end of the day. And the best interviews I used to get were the ones where I understood that. And I was like, okay, it's the end of the day. And they're like, no, it's okay. It's like, no, I'm tired. You're tired. We're both nervous. Let's just do this. Okay. Let's have some fun. When you can make them relax, I know the fake giggle that people do in interviews. And that Star Wars clip was the fake. Oh, you're so funny. Oh, this is so funny. Inside, they're thinking, fuck, how do I get out of this?
Yeah. It's like
in that moment, you know you're going down.
Yeah.
You know there's no way to answer where somebody won't hate you.
Yeah. And it feels like journalists are just, it's become very scummy in general.
Oh, it is. I wouldn't do the things that are required now.
Mm-hmm.
One, because I didn't, everything's very short term, right? Get this scoop, burn the source.
Yeah.
And you can't do that and get, long-term quality stuff. It's not, and yes, this is me being a little bit, some people would consider it political. I consider it philosophical. One thing I share with a lot of game devs is that one of the purposes of dedicated games journalism is to inform people about what goes into making games.
Yeah.
And that trust required to give you that early access, to give you that peek behind the curtain, that's destroyed when you publish leaks. Which is why I don't publish leaks. I've heard things about certain games and said nothing. And I hadn't signed an NDA, but I knew the person told me they were drunk when they were drunk, and they weren't supposed to say it. And I wasn't there as a reporter. I was there as a person. And I'm like, I'm not going to do this, because if this gets out, they're going to get in trouble. And I don't want that. I want them to talk to me. I want them to relax around me. But let me tell you, man, did people start telling me a lot more when I stopped being officially a games journalist. It was like flipping a fucking switch. And that's really too bad, because the things I've learned are important. And it's really messed up that it is such a zero-sum total war environment that we can't have honest discussions. We need an inside the actor studio of video games. I've um been saying this from the beginning.
And I think, I mean, part of it comes down to just lack of empathy, because I do see a profound lack of empathy nowadays. And the way people are just not even self absorbed, just oblivious that someone else has a different experience from what they have.
Yeah,
And just, but also the lack of ability to work together, like whether it's journalists and the people they interview, whether it's authors and reviewers, or any of these people who depend on each other.
yeah,
Like, game devs need game journalists to help promote their work. Authors need reviewers to help promote their work. But if we're all at each other's throats and see each other as an enemy, no one's gonna win.
that's right. That's exactly right. And
Yeah,
that's where we're at now.
yeah, it's an example of a rising tide lifts all boats. But if we're too busy firing at each other, tide's not coming in, dude.
Well, I mean, one of the best things to ever happen to me, I believe, was getting labeled the enemy by both sides of the whole Gamergate controversy. Because something happened recently. I don't know if I should bring it up. But both sides thought I was secretly working for the other side because I was doing my job and just trying to understand both sides.
The
And
fact it got to the point where there are sides, like
well,
I feel it, like I get it, but I also think people need to take a step back at that point.
well, that's even reductive too, because there were factions within each side as
Oh
well,
yeah.
right? Like there's too much flattening of
Mm-hmm.
opinion on everything, even with the current culture war, even with, Comics Gate or
Oh god, I could
um
tell you stories about
well,
Comicsgate.
but they all had internal factions, right? With
Oh
it,
yeah.
it's never one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't get is that people who are involved in these things and they know they're not tightly coordinated. They know these are things that just happen and it's this weird lightning in a bottle thing that gets very big and weird. Why they assume that they're a ragtag bunch of misfits, but the other side is highly organized and not as fucked up as they are.
Because that's what the media has told us the good people are. So if you think you're right, you're going to associate yourself with the ragtag rebels.
Right.
And obviously, that means the people you don't like are the bad guys, which is the big shiny empire.
Which is why what the boys this season is doing is so brilliant because there's a new character named Sage, who's the gender swap Ibramex Kendi that I
Oh.
was talking about. There's a bit of Kendi, there's a bit of Roxanne Gay, there's a bit of Bell Hooks, that sociopathic intellectual
Mm-hmm.
that really has more in common with the people they claim to be against
Mm-hmm.
because they are part of when you are part of the academy, you are part of the establishment.
Yep.
There's no, and she's working with Homelander, even though she appears to be as part of the Starlighters. So they actually engineer a reverse Charlottesville, where people on the Homelanders side appear to get killed during a riot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she came up with that idea, even though she hates everything Homelander's a part of. He just says this is a chance to make a real difference. This is a chance to test all of those theories you have you've thought about because she's in universe the smartest person alive. And
Oh boy.
that was the moment where it's like, okay, she's also a narcissist. She's also a sociopath. I mean, Homelander's a flat out psychopath, but she's more like him, even though she starts off, I'm nothing like you. I read smart books. I'm smart. I'm black. I'm a woman. You know, you can't stand me. You'll never listen to me. He baits her really, really quickly. And the reality of a world where you see these people who supposedly despise each other, you get the Blair Whites versus Candace Owens
Hmm.
debates that are shit shows.
Nice callback.
Well, the fact that any of these things ever happen tells you something,
Yeah.
right? Because they're useless. They're not good discourse. Nobody learns anything.
No.
They're nightmare fuel.
Watching that was when I realized that people don't debate.
Well, it's the
And
cult of the click.
yeah, and that was when I realized, oh, all these online debates just turn into screaming matches. So I did learn something from that.
Well, I confound people when they're like, I'm doing this. And I'm like, I don't debate. Well, chicken, all this stuff. It's like, no, 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 you don't understand. My idea of a debate is Oxbridge rules, where one person is on one side, the other person is on the other side, and the audience votes before and after. That is my understanding of a debate. That's not what you do. All right, a dialogue then. Okay. So, here are these things. This one guy interviewed me. He said he was doing a book, and then it became a live stream, and then it was a book and a live stream. But, one of the things I said was, is there going to be misgendering during this interview? He blew up at me because there was some stuff on his Twitter timeline. And he kept coming back, and I'm like, all right, fine. And after we did the interview, I did something he didn't like, and he started calling me unhinged in DMs again. And I said, oh, we're back to this, are we? Because you said this before we did the interview. And if you truly believe this, then you suborned the commentary of a person you believe to be mentally ill and therefore unreliable. Anything you got from me is junk. He deleted everything with me in it from his channel. He scrubbed it, which is what I quite frankly wanted. But I knew that if I said to him, take it down, I don't consent, he'd take the victory lap.
Oh, yeah.
When I let it be his idea, interest convergence, right? Like we both won there.
Yeah.
It was not useful, and I could do that stuff and get a lot more traffic, but then anybody I worked with would be subject to the slings and arrows that come with it, the psychological abuse, the shitty comments, the you know all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not good for the people who are only on their second book, like yourself. That's not where my head's at. That's not what I'm interested in. And so I have to, do it a different way and stick with, the few hundred people that actually get it.
Hmm.
And so we can have those good discussions that everybody says they need, or we need, but no one is willing to sacrifice the traffic and infamy to actually do.
Yeah.
And that's the true politicizing of this whole space. All these anti-capitalists who act like the biggest fucking capitalists I've ever seen. Because clicks are still a market economy, people.
Hmm.
The algorithm is a market economy.
Yeah.
And well, we need to work within the existing system. Oh, you mean capitalism? Okay, how are you undermining capitalism? Oh, we're raising awareness of what? Your coffee? That's capitalism.
Yeah. I've mentioned this before, but it's like Alex Hirsch, the creator of the Gravity Falls show,
Yeah.
going on Twitter ranting about capitalism bad, but then later, oh, please buy the merch to support the show. And I'm like, capitalism, baby.
Yeah. And you know what? there are things we have to watch, right?
Mhm.
About just because capitalism's the best we have so far. It's like democracy, right? It ain't
I mean,
perfect.
I will absolutely agree that we are in a late stage form of capitalism that is not serving any of us very well right now.
Well, because it's not capitalism, now it's corporatism,
Yes.
which is closer to feudalism than actual work has value.
And I hate it. Thanks.